Bad doctors, good doctors. Hello, y'all. I'm DIANNA BRIANNE. Well, first of all, I don't give advice, suggestions, recommendation, or information. I just share with you my perspective, my viewpoints on different topics, as is with this one. So I wanted to come on here and talk about good doctors and bad doctors. And it's a subject that I've kind of touched on before. Now, as you all know, I've done videos in the past upon my health crisis that I had 10 years ago when I ran into a wooden hanger, blunt force. And I've also talked about my daughter's health crisis that she had 3 years ago, and she's doing fine now overall. And that was a very scary experience. That was called portal vein thrombosis, and mine was called brain aneurysm. So if you want to go look up those videos, you're very, very welcome to. Either way, I wanted to talk about good doctor, bad doctor. You know, there's a lot of amazing, wonderful, incredible, giving, thoughtful, kind, informed doctors out there of all kinds, of all kinds. There are amazing surgeons, there are amazing general practitioners, there are amazing specialists, and I have met and actually worked with many in my life. And there are doctors out there that have saved life after life, people that would not be here today without the skill of a doctor. There are doctors that listen to their patients. There are doctors that are kind and thoughtful, and they research and they recommend and they do an excellent job. So I want to talk and first of all say that so many wonderful doctors are out there, and I would say the vast majority are wonderful, amazing doctors. Okay, now having said that, I also want to talk about the lousy doctors out there. You know, just like in any profession, you've got great people that do great jobs, and you have lousy people that do lousy jobs. And they can vary, they can run the spectrum. They may be a great doctor at their skill, but have a lousy bedside manner. They may have a great bedside manner, but lousy at what they do. I remember someone once saying, I'd rather have a doctor with a lousy personality who is great at what he did. And I probably agree with them. And yet, I like to have both. I want a doctor that's going to listen to me, not discount me. So let me tell you a couple little stories. When I had my suddenly, about 11 years ago, I went to a doctor, and he told me that, you know, it was kind of like just menopause, or it was nerves or whatever. And I knew it wasn't, because I had never been a hypochondriac, and I'd never, you know, I'd never really been sick before. And I most certainly was not going through any kind of crisis where I would have a panic attack or anything like that. So I knew something was wrong. And I went back to him a few more times, and then I fired him. I just completely quit seeing him, and I went on to another doctor who listened somewhat, but unfortunately that doctor wasn't all that skilled, in my opinion. They told me that I had water in the ears. Now, I kind of learned later that sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes when they tell you you have water in the ears, that, well, sometimes they don't know what the answer is. And so that was my situation. So I got kind of passed along to 17 doctors, and it was doctor number 17 that discovered what it really was. And, you know, by then my body was in self-corrective mode, and I was very, very fortunate to have survived and to live and then thrive later and be here today. And so there are all kinds of doctors, but those doctors in between that first one and the final one, sort of the final one, the one that discovered what it was. There were wonderful, amazing doctors in between. They treated me with respect and kindness and everything like that. I did have one doctor, though, that came into the room one time and talked rather down to me when I was in the hospital. And but when my husband was there, when you have an advocate by your side, even an advocate that doesn't say anything, they treat you very, very different. Okay, when you're vulnerable, sometimes some less ethical doctors will talk down to you, but an ethical doctor will not, okay? And there's far more ethical doctors than there are unethical ones. But the small percentage of unethical ones, or ones that are not nice, or the ones that are condescending, are out there. And so we do need to be alert to those. And so when my daughter took sick, she had amazing doctors. At first they misdiagnosed her numerous times. I got on the internet and started researching. And at the very same time, I came up with what I thought she had, and then the doctors kind of stepped in and they said, yeah, I think that's what she has too. Then they called in a specialist and determined that was what it was. But there was a lot of misjudgments, miscalculations along that journey. So she ended up with the most amazing surgeon, and he saved her life. He saved her life. If it wasn't for him, I don't know what would have happened. And he also had a great bedside personality. He was wonderful. He was informed. He explained everything to us. He was an amazing surgeon, an amazing person, okay? So now I stayed at her bedside day and night. I was exhausted. I stayed there in my pajamas. I slept in this big hard blue chair that had a metal bar in the middle that kind of reclined a little bit, but not all the way. It was awful, but I stayed there. And every 2 hours, the nurses would come in, the doctors would come in, everybody, oh my gosh, I was so tired, didn't get sleep. And I remember one morning, this doctor had come in place of the nice doctor, in place of the surgeon. And he was a well-qualified doctor. I mean, he was skilled in what he did. And when I went to speak up for my daughter, because she was only 18 at the time, he said, would you please be quiet and let your daughter talk? And my daughter spoke up and she said, you know what? My mom is a nurse. And then, of course, the interns and everyone that were around him kind of snickered a little bit, because I think they kind of felt the same way about him that I did, that he was very, very condescending. And I think he was a bit embarrassed. And nonetheless, normally I would have spoken up and said, you know what, you're very, very rude. I would have. And let me tell you, under normal circumstances, I would have done that. And the reason I kept my mouth shut was because he also had the power to say, hey, you can't be here. I'm going to put you out of here because you're disruptive. He could have said something like that. And I wasn't, but he could have. And my daughter was still too sick at the time, and she needed me at her bedside to watch over her, to make sure everything was okay. I'm a great advocate. I was a fantastic advocate for my mother. I am the best advocate anyone can have, in my opinion. And yet you can't be your own best advocate when you're in a weakened position. You need someone else to be an advocate, in my opinion. And so even if, like when my husband just showed up one time when I, was in the hospital, and he just sat there, he didn't ask any questions, he didn't do anything, but the level of how the doctor spoke to me was totally different, totally different. And so, when you're in a vulnerable position, you really, really, in my opinion, need an advocate. So I want to get back to this. There are amazing doctors out there. The vast majority, in my opinion, are amazing and wonderful. And yet there is that small percentage that is not so amazing, whether it's their skills are not amazing, their credibility is not amazing, or whether their personality is not amazing. But remember the great doctors, remember. And if you have a lousy doctor, for me personally, I would search out only the best. So when I go to the doctor, I'm sort of a little bit of a prima donna, in a good way, in a polite way, in a respectful manner. I let them know that I have high expectations. Okay, from my house to yours, may God bless you. I hope you like, share, subscribe to all 5 of my channels. Links are pinned at the top of the comment section below. If you connect with me, I will likely connect back with you as well. May God bless you. Hope to talk to you then. Bye-bye.